Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We are really excited about this new exhibit, which just opened yesterday, especially having shared the work of Rudy and Teresa 5 years ago, a little bit more than 5 years ago, I guess it was. We featured their first project, the first Cultural Army of Tucson. So when Rudy approached me about submitting another group, we were really excited to have that opportunity. They actually kicked off our community corner back in 2016. So it's great to have them back in the community corner with their newest edition. And I'm going to get started with some questions. So first of all, I wanted to have Rudy and Teresa give us a little bit of background. Can the two of you please share what inspired the original group of Cultural Army members?
So I was already interested in 3D printing, and we ended up with the scanner. And my older son, Gabriel, had mentioned maybe doing some scans of some local musicians and making figures out of them. So we just kept testing it out and inviting people to the studio and just trying to refine the process. And yeah, all of a sudden we went from 20 figures to 50 to 300. Just because it was fun to invite people over and to see what kind of props they bring and just challenge ourselves to see what we can get out of the scanner. That's just it was fun to just get to know the community that way too.
Yeah, I remember that first show. It had so many figures. I remember you were surprised at how fast it grew. It was really great to see.
Yeah.
And even this show, when we originally started talking about it, you said, "Oh, I think we'll probably have about 100." And here we are at almost 200, which is really, really awesome.
It happened quick too.
All right, so Rudy and Teresa, feel free to jump in as well. But this first question is a little bit more for you, Rudy. Or I should say the second question. What were some of the skills or some of the knowledge that you brought to this project when you first started doing your 3D scanning and came up with this concept?
Well, it's been a learning process the entire time. I took some graphic design in high school and college. And then I've been working for a local sign shop for about 24 years doing design there. So I was starting to take an interest in 3D printing and scanning. So I wasn't able to really apply the stuff I learned before. So it's just been a process the entire time, just getting to know softwares and trying to get better at this.
And really feeling comfortable probably with working with software and in a creative way.
With my job, I always had to stay on top of new softwares and just stay on top of things. So I kind of just get into the software and seeing what does and doesn't work and just get better at it. And there's really good communities out there to learn the software.
So you told us a little bit about how the Cultural Army got started. And I know, well, Teresa just kind of went off screen, but can you explain the role that you play? And then hopefully she can jump in and share the role that she plays in creating this group of figures.
So pretty much on my end, I do all the scheduling. So I basically just have the entire roster and just try to, schedule everyone. And then once I get everyone scanned, I come home. I do the scans, I bring everything home and clean everything up and then start the printing process. And then basically goes to Teresa, who ends up.
Well, once it's done printed, and it usually takes about
4 hours to print
4 hours. Because we usually print them in, how many, 6 or 8, depending on how many can fit. Once they're done printed, then I will take them out of the printer. And then they go into this other machine that it washes them with an alcohol-based solution, and you wash them that way because this is a different material we didn't use last time. It's resin, so it prints differently, and you have to clean them, which wasn't a thing that we did with the first. We didn't need to do that in the first one. But anyways, after I clean them, then I take them out, and they have braces that I have to take off, and then actually, there's one here. I'm better at showing than talking about it.
Oh, that'd be great.
We'll show you how they look before they get cleaned up.
Yeah, that's always good to know. Gives us a better example. Oh, I see.
So this is what they look like as soon as they come out of the printer. So all these braces that are attached I end up cutting them off with these clippers, and then sometimes I have to use an X-Acto. And then once I do that, then I have to cure them with a UV light that hardens the material. And then once that's done, then I paint it with a different green, because this is the green color that's the only color that this resin comes in, and it's not the right green that we wanted. So.
So we found a model paint that goes on really smooth and doesn't leave any brush strokes. And then once she's done with that part, then I start the packaging. So some are, depending on the prop, we have to adjust the packaging to fit the figure. That's also another challenge, you know, just some props are handheld and some, you know, are tandem bicycles, and so it just varies.
Sounds like fun. So the process has changed then from the original set 5 years ago. You know, what material was it back 5 years ago when it wasn't resin that you were using in the printer?
It was a plastic. It was
Like filament.
it was filament. It basically just traced the model. It would extrude it, and it would take about 8 hours to print each one. And we can only do one at a time. But with the new one, it's resin, and it cures layers within a second or two. So it's just constantly building the model. So, you know, like you said, we usually stack the printer with about 6 people, and it finishes about 4 hours.
Wow, it's amazing how much it's advanced since, you know, in the last 5 years.
And definitely made the process a lot quicker too, because we were able to do more than one figure at a time and have them ready. And then I just basically had a lineup of some that were already done, and all I had to do was paint them. So that made it a lot easier for me.
I seem to remember with the first series, Teresa, that you had to do a little bit more refining of the figures after they came out. Is that correct?
Yeah, the what would you call it? The braces, like the way that the braces were on those ones.
Yeah, like these type of supports used to be these massive pieces that didn't break off by hand. You had to snap them off with the like flush cutters, and then you have to go in and sand where it would make contact. You had to sand that off.
I would leave little bumps behind, so I would have to sand it really well, and yeah, they would break a lot. And then even these ones are a lot more forgiving if they break. It's a lot easier to connect the resin pieces together because they're basically, well, resin sticks to resin. So I just use what is it, uncured resin to fix it. So it was a lot easier if something would snap off or come off or anything. So
yeah, and even the
Wow.
resolution has changed a lot since the other one, because the new printer holds more information, so you can have more details in the figures. So they've changed drastically since that first one.
That was one thing I really loved about the new pieces when I first saw them, was all the fine detail that you can get. Like I noticed, you know, really fine little folds in the fabrics. You could almost see the texture of some of the fabrics, which you couldn't tell in the previous series. So yeah, you can really see a big difference in the quality and the detailing with this grouping.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the new scanner picks up, you know, wrinkles in clothing, and this time around we did a separate head scan. That way we can, you know, put more emphasis on the expression of the figures.
I love that. Rudy, could you talk a little bit more, having been scanned, since you made an Army figure of me for this series, can you explain to people a little bit more about the process of scanning and how that works and what we experience as a model being scanned?
So the first time around with the first series, we used a portable scanner where we could just walk around the participant and get one single scan. The new one, we do about 4 scans now. One is a high res scan of the entire body, and then we get a separate head scan, and then we get a backup scan with the old scanner, and then we also get one of the prop. So sometimes we'll get lucky and be able to use that one scan, but most of the time we end up having to what we call Frankenstein them and just kind of get the best parts. And sometimes we sculpt in things like hair, because hair is really tricky. So we go back in and clean that up. But just having those higher res scans, it saves a lot of time on our end.
you've also had to recreate
Yeah,
some props that we like. for example, my mom, she likes to go to the casino and she didn't know what to do. So I told her, how about you act like you're pulling the slot machine handle and Rudy will 3D model it. So he actually had to make a slot machine. My mom wasn't actually in front of the slot machine. He had to recreate one in the program. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that was fun. And we had a friend who she finds chairs on the side of the road and she'll end up reupholstering them. And she wanted to use one for her figure. So I said, well, why don't we use 4 of them? So we end up scanning 4 separate chairs and then stacking them in the software. And then we put her at the very top.
So she's not really on a whole bunch of chairs. She's being
Yeah.
I was wondering about that when I saw the piece.
So sometimes it's
Thinking, oh, she's brave.
Yeah, it's always fun to see what people bring to it because I don't have any influence of what they want to do. I just tell them to show up and just see what they have and see what works. And sometimes there's some resculpting involved, but it's always fun. It ends up helping me to learn more, and get better at the sculpting end of it.
So I do have another question about the process, but I want to ask a question about the why of the Army Man Project Volume 2. Why did you decide to do a second series? Was it just because new technology, or was there more to it than that?
So I found myself unemployed after working for the same sign shop for 24 years, and it's kind of an abrupt thing. So I figured with this free time, I just want to get reconnected with the community, especially after a couple of years of this virus. And I was feeling disconnected from art and just people in general. So I said, well, if I can kind of just pretend to be a working artist for the next few months, I want to do that. So I approached her because she has so much work she has to do. I just didn't want to announce it until I talked to her. I said, you want to do this again? And we knew it was going to be a little different this time, just trying to navigate through the virus, just trying to be safe and make people feel comfortable through the process. So she was all for it. We just kind of wanted to get acquainted with people again and, see people we were part of the old series and get acquainted with new people. And so it felt like a good time to do it, especially with the new equipment. We knew we'd have to go back to the old way of doing it because I don't know if I would have ever done it again if we did it that way. So we took some old scans that we did in the last project and we used a new process. And like, wow, this is nothing. This is so easy. So that's kind of what influenced us, wanting to do it again.
Sounds great. So the fact that it's just such an easier process, is that's what you mean by you never would do it again the way you did it the first time? It was just too time consuming the first time, or?
It was too time consuming, and it just, with our son too, she's a stay-at-home mom, and I don't want to put all this work on her, with me being out scanning all day and her working on that end of it. I just didn't want to, leave that work on her.
You did most of the work.
But yeah, we just knew it was gonna be easier this time around, so it felt right.
So what's been a highlight of this second series for each of you? What did each of you find as a highlight?
Well, we were talking about that the other day because we both have different. The first time we basically did everything together. So I went with him to all the scans, and I even helped him scan, and we kind of did the whole process together. But this time around, it was different. Just to keep things easier and safer, I stayed home. He did most of the scanning, and I didn't go with him. So it was different the way that he saw a figure because he was there in person. He got to see the person. He got to see all that, and he would come home and tell me everything, and then I got to see it on screen. So everything that I was seeing was more of the digital aspect of it, and I was just so surprised that the amount of detail that were in these scans that we didn't get to have, like the wrinkles in the clothing and the hair and the eye. It's funny, but like it's funny to get excited about eyelids and eyeballs. I'm like, oh my gosh, you can see their eyeballs. Like, that's cool. So that was my highlight because I was just kind of at home doing my own thing. So that was the exciting thing for me. But go ahead.
Yeah, probably one of my highlights was the original series we did in the studio downtown, and everyone came through there to get scanned. So this time around, a majority of the project was done on site at the participants location. So I got to see their workspace, or just their home, and get to know them, and they seem to be more comfortable in their own space. And then it kind of allowed for more conversation with them, so I got to know them better. So that was a highlight for me, and even just getting to know some of the older participants, because they just had certain just knowledge, and just they shared a lot with me, and so I really enjoyed that aspect of it too. And it kind of influenced another project that I want to do eventually. And but yeah, those are highlights for me, and just getting to know people again. Just seeing what people have been up to the last couple of years, especially through the virus, and a lot of people have just found new ways to keep themselves busy, and those are things that they wanted to share in their figure, all these things that they've learned.
Sounds great. When you reflect on the project, I know you just shared some highlights, so this is a similar question, but when you reflect on the project, what do you enjoy most about doing it?
I mean, for me, it's the one-on-one with people, because I keep referring to the last series, but that being 5-6 years ago, I'm still in touch with pretty much all those people still. So you kind of, we've maintained friendships. So and that originally just started out as just a technological thing, just trying to learn the stuff, but we've learned that it's actually more just about connecting with people, and even all the participants having this connection through the project. They may not know each other, but it's something that they all share now.
Yeah, I agree. I love that about it. Was excited to be a part of it in that way. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's even fun on social media. Somebody will share their figure, and have a little cluster of people, and they go, oh, well, hey, there's so and so, and I didn't know you were part of that. Yeah, I recently posted an image of all the figures in a bucket, and it turned into an I Spy game where everyone is trying to find their figure. So I like that about it.
Yeah, it's really neat seeing how creative and cool people are, just with the things that they come up with, the things that they're sharing with us, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, I can see how that would be, because especially, I guess, when you get into their home, but not that you did it this time around, Teresa, but yeah, because people come out like they're performing in a way, or revealing something about themselves in sort of a stage-like setting. So it might make them be a little bit more willing to be dramatic, or share something that's a little bit more personal. Because at the same time, it's anonymous, it's an Army figure. So it's kind of this interesting contradiction of individuality and unity at the same time.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh,
exactly.
that's cool.
Yeah, like I always enjoyed coming home after a session and telling her about, everything that we talked about. And, and she, like she said, she didn't really get to experience that. But then when she sees a figure, she gets to put a face to that experience that I had. So it's like, it gets revealed to her that way.
I love the bios too. I know those are on the website, on the Army Men website, but it was neat seeing that too. And then some people put pictures. That was cool for me to see, because I've been working on these figures for the last, how many months? 6 months.
6 months.
Just working on all these little people that I don't really know. And then I got to see all their bios, and I got to see the pictures of them. I'm like, oh, that's that person. Oh, how cool. That was really cool.
I like that. And then for the audience, just so you know, in the exhibit at the museum, we do have a QR code available, so you can use your phone and access the information on the individual artist or individual members of the Army, just by clicking on, tapping through the QR code. So it's great that we're able to access your website, and people can see and learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
So what do you find most challenging about this project? We've been talking about the fun part. What's the frustrating or the challenging parts?
A big challenge is scheduling it, because 185 people within 6 months, it was definitely challenges. I try to make a route where I can just go throughout Tucson and hit all these different scans, and that was definitely one of the bigger challenges. And even just props, because I don't, like I said, I'm trying to influence the people what they want to bring. So just having to recreate some parts, that's always a challenge. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, those are the only two things that I can think of.
Teresa, what about for you? What do you find most challenging about the project?
Just trying to find the time to do it when I have a 3-year-old. Well, I don't know if you guys saw him earlier. He makes it a lot more challenging to do pretty much anything, but it's amazing. But still, like, I think it was just trying to find time in the day for me to be like, okay, he's quiet, he's busy, I'm gonna sneak over here and paint some things and try not to make myself known. but no, that it actually really wasn't that bad. But yeah, that was probably my challenging thing.
Yeah, I can understand that, having been a parent of a young child.
Task so that he was involved that way.
He was able to push the button on the printer, and yeah.
That way he felt like he was involved, and kept him busy.
Mm-hmm. So is he really excited about it, or does he just kind of curious about it?
He's curious. He was really excited when we're doing scans in our porch for a while, and people were showing up, and he really loved seeing the participants that way, because we'd have somebody dressed as Wonder Woman show up, or we had a police officer. So every time you looked out the window, there was something different to see.
Somebody new in our backyard.
So he loved that, and him seeing the figure, a couple of days later, he just started to put it all together. Like, what are my mom and dad doing? And so,
he really wanted one of himself, but that's hard too.
Yeah,
smaller children. So he did a pretty good job being still, though, for one.
It took about 3 months to get a good scan of him,
Yeah.
because he wouldn't sit still. But we got it.
And it's in the show, I saw it.
Yeah, he's sitting on a little block that we
Mhm.
sculpted for him. He's got his name on it.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad that he was a part of the show. It's really great. He was so fun to meet when I came over to the studio.
Oh yeah, and he loved seeing the show there too. Yeah, he loved it.
All right. How has this project impacted your body of artwork or your creative life and your life in general?
So even in the last 6 months, I had to relearn or learn new software to do this series because of the new printer and the new scanner. So now that I have these skills from having to use them on the figures, I can apply towards my own art. So I'm hoping to do more digital sculpts and print more figures and make some toys. 'Cause that's something we're doing in the past, but just having to learn all this new stuff, I get to apply it towards new projects. And so that's the impact it's had on my artwork. And she's starting to get into more digital artwork now, because it's when you have a 3-year-old, it's hard to have anything around when you're trying to sculpt stuff physically. So now that everything's so virtual, you can do stuff from an iPad or your computer. So it's easier to have that type of artwork around now. But I answered.
I'm back, sorry.
But you asking how it impacted your body of work.
Oh yeah. I've always wanted to sculpt, and yeah, this makes it a lot more fun and exciting when you can see yourself like that. But yeah.
And we've worked with a lot of locals, some musicians who want to have merchandise, like toys of themselves. So we've done a lot of that. Even during this project, we managed to do a few projects with some local musicians, making toys for them. So it's just nice to go from a digital, just make a sculpt digitally and then print a prototype and make a mold. It just speeds up the process. So that's kind of where we're at now. That's some of the stuff we want to keep doing.
Sounds great. And you're kind of jumping into my next question, actually. I was just going to ask you, what are some other ways that you're using 3D printers? Are you using the 3D printer for other projects? Or so that was one example, but what are some other things you're doing with it?
Even just visiting the museum recently, there was some displays that was really inspiring. So I want to do more, sculpts, just like diorama type stuff. And I just want to, maybe create some scenes with some characters. So that's something I want to get into. And, we actually, now that we have the scanner, we can apply it towards other things. We've had some local sculptors that have massive bronze sculpts that they need to shrink. And so we've been doing a lot of that on site, and we can provide those files to foundries. and they can actually produce smaller versions of the sculpts. So they're just avenues that we hadn't really thought about because everything's been so people-based, but now we can start getting to these other things.
Oh, that is a really cool way to think about it. So in other words, are these artists doing like really large sculpture and they want to have an opportunity to make something that's more affordable for more people? So they are reducing it for those purposes?
Exactly. Yeah, we've had to visit some museums and scan some large sculpts, and even mechanical parts. If somebody needs to remake a mechanical part
Molds.
or molds. Yeah. So yeah, people throw these projects our way, and if we can do what we can, but it's always fun just to challenge ourselves. So it's not always, artist based, but it's just, we're at least able to use the technology and help some other people out.
It makes me think too that you never know where those processes might lead to, because you might be doing something that seems very mundane or everyday, like printing a part for I don't know, a wrench or something, but then it could spark an idea for your creative work, I guess. Has that happened yet? Or do you imagine that could happen?
Yeah, definitely. Even just meeting with people, they'll throw these projects our way and they'll present something that we hadn't really thought of. Even a wedding venue asked if we could be a vendor for wedding toppers. So we're like, wow, that's, it's something we kind of consider, but I hadn't really thought about it. So people are actually seeking out and providing ideas for this technology.
That is a neat idea. I like that. So I have one more question, then I'll open it up to the audience. And my last question is, what's next for you all?
Well, we've got, we're going to keep doing this. We've got volume 3, Army Man Project Volume 3. We really love this project and we want to keep it going. And hopefully eventually we'll have a place to show that show too. But yeah.
Yeah, Volume 3 is mostly just an ongoing thing now, because
Yeah.
there was a definite time frame for this one. So we just want to pace ourselves with this one. And I'm actually going back to work next week with the Desert Museum. So, I definitely just, work around that schedule, but that's definitely, something that's in the works. And we want to continue making toys, from our own ideas, and just get our own artwork out
Making
there.
our own weird art.
And I have an animated film I want to do that I keep working on 10 minutes at a time. And it's definitely a process. Even just as a one-person thing, it's hard, and I kind of bit off more than I could choose, just because I can't really, it's hard to work with, a large group of people right now just because of everything going on. But, at some point I like to work with other people and just collaborate on this project. So for now, it's just me just learning how to animate. But yeah, it's a project that a story I wrote 19 years ago, and it's seen several versions, and I just want to, I just want to finish it up this year.
I don't blame you. That's a long time to be working on.
Yeah, but it's like my baby project.
Baby,
I just want to make sure I'm true to it and make it the way I want to do it.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing your work with the Tucson community in so many different levels. First, by getting to know everybody and scanning them, and then by bringing it to our museum, giving us the honor of being able to exhibit it for you, and so people can come and see it.
Yeah,
and, I'm going to turn it back over to Mackenzie, and she will field some of the questions that the audience has thrown at her, and open up the floor for others to ask questions as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So many of you may have seen in the chat feature, I shared some photos of some of the figures that were referenced earlier. I also shared links to the website to see the armymanproject.com website, so you can look at all the figures, and then also to Rudy and Teresa's website at hexandhue.com. So that's some resources for everyone. I did have and before I open it up to questions for the audience, I have questions.
All right.
One of the things I wanted to just sort of share with you is I work with a bunch of middle school students who are working on projects with 3D printing and making miniatures in that way. And one of the things that they have been working on is using a program called Tinkercad and so we're trying to encourage young people to explore that technology. Do you have any advice or suggestions for them about how to do that?
So I have a lot of people that usually email me asking about which 3D printer to buy.
Oh, yeah.
I typically tell them, get free software first to make sure this is something that they want to invest in, because if you don't enjoy the sculpting part of it, then you're not going to get beyond that and you'll never print anything. So I usually tell people to get Tinkercad because that's a great software for more CAD-based stuff. We're using simple shapes. And then there's others that are free where you can actually sculpt more organic shapes. So that's usually like the two different types of sculpting. So I usually just, one is called Sculptress. And it's just a good way to see if it's something you're going to enjoy. And then from there, you can find cheaper printers, but no matter what you get, you're always going to want to do more. And when I started, I bought, cheapest thing I could find, and I immediately wanted to do something more with it. So we've upgraded. We own, I think, at least 10 printers now. And the last one is probably the last one I'm allowed to buy. But you want to get somewhere you can accomplish the things right off the bat. Just make that investment. That's what I would tell people. And I try to, if people ask me, I try to send them all the links. And I don't know everything, but I at least try to share what I know. Maybe save people some money and some mistakes.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. One of the things that we try to emphasize when we're talking with the middle school kids is that there's a lot of engineering and construction and things that go into making something and doing the 3D print, but there's a lot of creativity. And I think that you both are wonderful examples of, you're taking your creative inspiration and you're using the technology and making something that's just fantastic and really awe-inspiring. So I'm definitely going to be sharing with those middle school students some examples and images of your work, because it's something that they can relate to and see what a wonderful sort of creative endeavor you've both explored. So I appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
So now we want to make sure that we can open it up to questions from the audience. So if you would like to answer a question, if you want to type it in the chat feature, or you can unmute your mic and you can share your question. I just wanted to ask, so I have another one really quickly. You were talking before we got started with the more formal presentation part about the challenges of working with some of the props. And you mentioned specifically like the props with the animals and how you end up having to do stuffed animals or not real animals. Are there any other sort of fun stories or challenges that you wanted to share? You mentioned the slot machine. Are there any others that stand out for you as being particularly weird or difficult?
Well, I had a couple approach me during our first exhibit years ago about doing the monkey from Magic Carpet Golf. And I explained that it couldn't be scanned. And, we didn't talk for years. And then when they saw that we announced the second volume, they asked me again. And I usually don't turn down the challenge. So I went ahead and got a really rough scan of that one, but I had to make the entire thing digitally. But I got basically the core of the model. So it was a good starting point. But yeah, if anyone sees the exhibit, it's one of the larger figures there. But I try to be true to it because it's kind of iconic to Tucson. But yeah, that was the biggest, probably one more challenging figures we did. And we had a lot of bicycles too, which I thought was really fun because bikes are usually an extension of somebody's personality. That's just something they enjoy doing. So after a while, we just had a lot of digital bike parts where I had to, remake bikes digitally. So that was another challenge. But yeah, they were all over the place, you know, just a lot of welders for some reason this time around. I think a lot of people took up welding in the last 2 years. So that was a fun thing to do. So yeah.
I also noticed, and you mentioned this too, that there were several, lots of figures that are either sets of family members or large groups. Did you have a lot of people that signed up to do this as kind of a sort of a group activity, or how did that work?
Yeah, we had one family, there's a Ronstadt family. They signed up, there's about 5 of them, and they all came together. And a participant, her name's Rachel Chavez, she signed up 18 people, which consisted of co-workers, family, and friends. And we did them in 3 different sessions. But it was really neat seeing the dynamic between her and those different groups of people. And just even with her co-workers, it was like they're like family almost. So I got, you know, exposed to all that. And even when she came with her family, because she was there for every session, because it was just something she wanted to do for all the people she loved. And so it was neat being exposed to all that. But yeah, there was a lot of families, some couples, there was a few cake toppers that ended up coming out of this.
Wedding toppers.
Yeah, a few wedding toppers. But yeah, there was quite a few groups, you know, for anywhere from like 2 to 6 people. We had a group of friends, they all do, they go to the Burning Man festival. And so it was almost like a party that they threw, and they had me come and scan everyone. And sometimes what happens, I'll go to scan 1 or 2 people, and people that happen to be there end up like, well,
They see the process.
yeah, they see what's going on. Like, I want to be part of this. So they end up joining on the spot. So we had a lot of that too.
I can definitely see that. It's an amazing way to immortalize someone, and a great memento of a person. I think it's really, really wonderful. So we want to open it up now. If there are other people that have questions, if you want to unmute your mic, you can ask your question, or if you want to type it in the chat, you can feel free to do that. If anybody has questions for Rudy and Teresa.
I have a question. This is Bree. Hi guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello. I was lucky enough to be one of the people that Rudy scanned, and I thank you very much for creating a mini version of me. It's really an interesting experiment. And you know, I guess my biggest question is, what do you hope that people will take away from this installment or from this project? You know, like, is there some sort of like, you know, aha moment that you kind of got by messing with scale, and, you know, what do you expect people to take away from it?
Well, I mean, what I'm taking away from it, I think other people will too, is it's just kind of a odd time in everyone's life, you know, just with everyone's been kind of isolated. So I just wanted to create something that we can all be a part of.
Yeah.
So I love that a lot of the figures look like a happy moment, you know, and they kind of just captured just out that special time. And when this entire time I've been doing a video version of all the scans, and I was using them for reference in case something didn't scan right, I can go back and remodel it. But after watching all the videos, everyone just had an expression, just they looked happy, they're just smiling. We started to compile all these, and that's what I want them to take away from it. Just like, it's just a moment, you know, something they got to share with 180 some other people, you know, just be part of this collection.
Yeah, like everything everybody was doing was so positive, and whether it was, you know, impactful to them or to the community or both, it was just really neat seeing everybody all in one show together, and people who don't know each other, who maybe, you know each other now. And it's really cool to just be a part of something that positive and just really exciting.
Yeah, kind of bringing the Tucson community together. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, even meeting you and Claude, like that was,
yeah,
you know, I came home and I was so excited because you guys shared your home with me, and just I got to see a lot of amazing art in that space, and I was inspired. And I that was something that happened pretty much every time I scanned somebody. I walked away with something, and somebody even told me early on, like, you're gonna leave with a little bit of everyone at the end of this project. And it was cool, you know. By the time we're done, I'm like, wow, all these people had an impact on me. They inspired me, and I just made me want to do more. It never felt like work. You know, every time I left the house to go scan, I was like, you know, excited to see what's going to come of it.
What a good way to flip a negative into a positive, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Rudy,
why
this
the timing was so good.
Rudy, this is Claude, Bree's husband. I just want to thank you personally again, like 1,000 times. You really, what you guys have done is just amazing. And we really want to see and hang out with you guys again too.
Oh yeah, no, I would love that. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are great.
I'll say for me too, this it says that the chat is disabled. Maybe that's just me, but that might be why people aren't chatting in more questions. So I just
Oh no. Okay, I'll try to fix that. Sorry.
okay, maybe it's just me, but I just want to let you know. Thank you, Rudy and Teresa.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you. Yeah, it was
you.
awesome meeting you too.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Well, Mackenzie's doing that. Don't forget, you can just unmute your mic and jump in with a question as well.
And hopefully now the chat is available. There was a checkbox that I didn't realize was checked, so that was not supposed to be. So I apologize for that. Please feel free to type questions in the chat feature. And yes, Bree was able to do it, so it does work. Thank you so much. So, and as I mentioned before, I have put some pictures and some website links in the chat feature, but if you have questions, you can also just unmute your mic.
Hey, Rudy.
Hey there.
Kathleen, I think I'm the only one out of your group that actually was a little Army man, that posed as a little Army man, and I appreciated that opportunity. What's the largest number of group of people that you can do or have ever done?
The largest group we've done,
Yeah.
there was a group of 18 that were broken up into 3 sessions. I think the most I did in one day at one location was 7 people.
9 or 7?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a long day.
I would love to do a group picture of our family, but we're big.
Yeah,
and
no, I'd love to do
we
that.
do a tamalada every year.
Oh, that
Talked
would be
about
fun.
that, but I think this year we had like 30 people, but it would be so much fun to have that immortalized. If you ever wanted the opportunity, we'd give you a dozen tamales.
I work off tamales, so that's awesome. Those things are like currency for us. Yeah, no, I would love that. I mean, it's stuff like that, like we've never thought of, you know, and people just want to capture that moment of, you know, being together as a family.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like I said, we had probably 30 people this year.
Wow.
It would just be fun to have that somehow, you know, like.
You have one person in charge while you're making them? There always has to be that one person who.
We're a Mexican family. Everybody's in charge.
Okay. Yeah, we used to make them with my grandparents, and my grandmother was in charge, and she used to check the ratio on everything, and I would get scolded the entire time.
Well, we're down to about the 4th and 5th and 6th generation of tamale makers, so you know everybody's in charge, and we have such a good time that it would be fun just even to have pictures or films or, you know, mini green men or something, or mini Mexicans or something.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I'd be honored to be part of something like that.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I
but
miss
thank
that,
you
'cause
for
my
the
family
scan,
didn't
and
do that.
everybody loved it. Like I said, I think I was maybe the only real Army man that was in there, and it was
think we
great.
had 3. Yeah, there was yours, the tribute figure, my brother-in-law who was in the Marines, and then Vietnam vet. He came in towards the end of the project. His son signed him up, and you know that session, you know, because anyone who's been scanned knows that it could, you know, only takes about 10-15 minutes, but you know, I ended up spending about an hour or 2 with them, and he just was sharing stories and his
I
experience,
can well imagine.
you know,
it was a great experience, and it was a good way to immortalize my parents, who were both military as well. So thank you again.
Yeah, I loved yours. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, she has her. Was it your mother's boots or your father's boots?
I had my mom's boots over my shoulder and my dad's helmet in my hands.
Yeah.
And,
I
and
love
thank you
how-
for digitally putting in the boots that I didn't have anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a fun one. But no, I appreciate you sharing that, your experiences with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, hey, Rudy.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey. Finally put my video on. I was busy working and listening. Yeah, it was so exciting to be a part of it. And it's cool to be now immortalized as the machete realtor, that mythological being. But have you guys considered putting like on your website where people could like order a duplicate of ones you have files of? Because I've gotten several requests and I'm wondering like if they could order directly from you guys. And
Yeah, there's actually a link on the site and it's
Uh-huh.
kind of hidden on there, but
Okay.
it's for copies. And
Okay.
they're all reduced in price because we already have to scan all the hard work.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
they're fully packaged figures.
Okay, so I'll
yeah.
have them order their own.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like, I got
something
enough
that-
things to keep track of.
We've had people ask, but we like to get the permission from the participant.
Oh,
because
okay.
We don't want to get into, because I've had people tell me, oh, I want a figure of so-and-so. And that person
Oh.
doesn't know it, so we don't want to sell the likeness of some. We're,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
like
yeah. I
a
never thought about that piece.
business type thing. It's more like,
There's some creepers.
yeah, exactly. So somebody said, oh, I want to get one of my friend Michelle, I would, as long as you're okay with it, then it's something we'll do.
Okay. All right, cool. I'll let them know and get working on it.
Yeah, but that was a fun one. I love the oversized key
Yeah,
and the
your key was
machete.
so cool looking. That was awesome.
Like those
Yeah,
are
it was
fun 'cause there's a story behind it, and you may not know what it is looking at it, but it kind of makes you want to. That's why we had the bios too.
Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah,
kinda-
it was cool.
Yeah, it was a fun one.
Are we supposed to be reading the answer to these too?
Let's see.
Any other questions?
It looks like there's someone here. Hold on.
Yeah, there's some in the chat. It looks like whoever was hosting dropped off or whatever.
Yeah, Mackenzie is having some technical difficulties. So
One about
let's see.
how do people sign up to participate?
From
So
Natalie.
yeah, there's one from Natalie W. So originally with the first project, we were inviting people to our studio. And this time around, we don't want to curate it because we just want to see who ended up there. But anyone who wants to participate in volume 3, they can just sign up through our website, which is Hex and Hue, which is our studio site. There's other things we do through there, but the bulk of it is the Army Man Project. But they can also go to armymanproject.com, and that's where all the bios are for all the participants or any media that they've done on the project. But there's a link on there that'll take them to Hex and Hue so they can basically sign up for a session. So that's how they that's how they participate.
And Mackenzie did put the link to the website in the chat. It might be
Okay.
at the top if you've been scrolling down.
And I see a comment from Judith. It's fun working with Judith and her husband. It's always fun to see who shows up or ends up being a part of the project. So, and I see Jill. Hello, Jill.
Rudy, I see another question for you from the chat about someone who was curious if there were any other people or musicians that you would love to get scans of just for your own enjoyment.
So the first series, we went crazy inviting musicians who had toured and had come to Tucson. We would just kind of throw out an email and tell them what we're doing. And we got lucky with a lot of musicians that we like. And just with a lot of shows not happening this time around, we haven't really put an emphasis on scanning musicians. But there are a few. There's a band called Zeal and Ardor that we like, and we like to scan them. And they came through Phoenix, and we thought about, hitting them up. But it just, a lot of times, if it's a band we enjoy, it's hard to plan around scanning them because you end up spending the entire day waiting for them. So it's hard to go to a show after that when you're just been waiting all day because we've waited up to like 8 to 10 hours to scan a band because they're doing sound check and all that. But there's a lot of locals too. a band called Weird Love Makers. They've been broken up for years, but they're one of my favorite local bands. And it'd be fun to do a set of them, or even another local band called Lenguas Largas. And I love those guys. They're currently doing music, and it'd be fun to work with them. Or even Calexico, which a lot of people are familiar with. It'd be fun to make a set with them. But we just wanted to put the emphasis on just people we didn't know right now, and just kind of, just work with them. I don't know if there's any bands you like to work with.
Just, yeah, I just get excited about everything, so. I always ask them. Just do
There-
it.
There's another question. Why did you decide to keep them army green rather than any other hues?
Because that's the paint we had. Well, no, I mean, okay.
That
It
was
just-
just kind of the base of how it all started in the beginning. What, 5 or 6 years ago was his Gabe, his older son, had mentioned you should make people look like army man figures, like the little green army man toys. So then it kind of went from there.
At our old printer, there was actually a green filament that we used, and
Oh yeah, actually.
it
had that
looked
color.
good. And then when we switched to resin, there wasn't a good match for green, because all green resin is translucent. So we lined up about 5 different greens, and we
I
picked
think
the
I
one
remember.
that the most details came out of. So that's how we ended up picking this one green, because some were a little too light and details were getting lost. So we ended up finding one that's yeah, it's this little model paint. I ended up ordering about 40 bottles online. I cleaned out this online store just so that we know we can be consistent and always use that same green.
And I like green. Green's my favorite color. That
Yeah.
doesn't really have anything to do with it, but I like green.
Yeah. It just felt more classic, like the classic figures. But maybe we'll do a volume in gray, or
We have done figures before. We've been doing 6-inch figures for people who have asked for them, and we do them in bronze paint or things like that. But that's not for the Army Man project, but that's for just people who ask for different colors. We have done that before.
That's great. This isn't a question, but I noticed someone said they're not from Tucson, but they really thought it was a neat idea to commemorate the community members. I kind of seem to remember when you did the first project, you were thinking about maybe moving on to some other communities at some point. Is that something you still might consider doing?
oh, definitely. I mean, I would love to just hop in an RV
That'd
and
be
just
really cool.
get lost in some other city, and maybe have it prearranged, or just see who wants to be part of this, and scan that community, and then hit the next one, and come home and just run all the prints, and then just have a show from as many cities as we can get to. I mean, that's kind of long term, maybe once our younger son is a little older, and maybe it'd be fun to get some kind of funding for a project like that. We've applied for grants where we can make this a thing where people can just sign up for, where it's no cost to them, but it's just something we're still trying to work on. But
That's
yeah,
a great
There's
idea.
no limit. Yeah, we're pretty much open to do anything like this.
I was just thinking that it would be a lot of fun if you joined up with StoryCorps, NPR StoryCorps, went along and did scans of the people who share their stories.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah. There's a lot of great local projects, and there's potential for so many, different versions of this. There's so many communities that we're not even exposed to. I think a big chunk of the figures we've done have been mostly artist based, or musicians, but there's just so many communities that we haven't really touched on yet.
mhm.
Does anybody have any additional questions that they'd like to ask?
I want to say hi to Jill. She is responsible for a majority of the figures, both the first and second volume. She's the one who hosted the party of people who do the Burning Man Festival, and that was such a fun group, and a lot of great interaction with that group of people. And She's a fire twirler. In the first series, she had, what is it called? Poi, is that what they're called? Yeah, it's the flaming ball with the chain. So we had to kind of figure out a way to scan so that it looks like she's twirling these things. And that was a challenge, but it was fun. You know, we got there, and you know, this time around she has 2 figures in a project. And
I love your mermaid one, by the way. So cool.
so yeah, she brought so many people to our project, so we appreciate that.
So Jill asked, what's next?
A nap. No, yeah, we're just gonna take it easy for now. I'm gonna, you know, start this new job, and we already have people lined up for volume 3. You know, we've been doing gift certificates to our website, so people have been, you know, for Christmas, a lot of people got signed up. So that's volume 3 it's next, it's in the works. And then our personal projects, you know, like the animated film, and you know, we just got a new studio. We got a studio 3 months ago to finish up the project, just because the weather was changing and we couldn't do them outside anymore. And then about 2 weeks ago, we upgraded the studio, and it's going to turn into a scan studio and retail space. So that's kind of what's next too, just filling the space with our art and having larger groups come to us for scans.
Well, I think that's really amazing. And I just want to say again, to both of you, thank you so much for sharing your artwork with us and for joining us tonight to talk a little bit more about it and give us some of the background information. As I mentioned before, I hope that as many of you as possible can come see the exhibit at the Mini Time Machine Museum of Miniatures. We have been on for about an hour, and I'm sure that Nico is probably climbing the walls.
This is the most rest we've gotten in a long time.
Maybe he fell asleep somewhere. And we have a couple of people to say thank you so much. Volume 3, here we come, and thank you. It would be great if you could come to Minneapolis. So maybe someday you can go someplace where it's a little bit colder. But again, thank you all so much for joining us, and good night. And we hope that you will come out to the museum and check out the exhibit.
Thank you so much for having us, and
thank you,
and for hosting the show again. It looks amazing. I love the way you guys set it up.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. It's really amazing. So thank you all. Have a great evening, and best wishes.
All right, thank you so much.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.